get more, your chance is just sitting there waiting. You can enter now. KFAN.com, keyword contest.
I had no idea how much material that Dan Orlovsky would generate for this program today. And I don't know how much of a conversation this has been on other shows or elsewhere on the dial or elsewhere in the United States of America. But I got to get to it. Are you familiar with the Orlovsky pedicure controversy?
I'm not.
Okay.
No.
Well, it came up in conversation via... It was on ESPN. I think it was on, what's the name of their morning show? Not First Take. It's the show with Greenberg that he hosts. And the subject came up. I mean, I don't know what the context was, but I think it had something to do with comments out of the University of Florida. Here's the comment from Orlovsky. I am completely against pedicures for dudes. You're a dude. You're not supposed to get pedicures. That's Dan Orlovsky. Now, our guy, Sean Salisbury, has weighed in. Here's what he says. And we do expect Sean back for another year of outstanding Vikings commentary as we get closer to the start of the season. Salisbury writes, love my guy Orlovsky, but he is absolutely wrong here. We all expect our lady to have good feet. Then we should have them as well. I don't need wolf toes. One of life's great pleasures is a pedicure with a cold beer. Masculine men do get pedicures, brother. Now, I don't know that I've given this a lot of thought, but I am curious to get reaction. 64686 is the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Now, my first question to Salisbury would be, when he says one of life's great pleasures is a pedicure with a cold beer, what if you liked a wine cooler with your pedicure? Would that be masculine enough for Sean Salisbury? It almost sounds like he's saying, yeah, you better, if you're going to do the pedicure, it's okay, but it better be with a shot and a beer. You know, I don't think one should necessarily have anything to do with the other. However, I need some reaction via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line, 64686. Get Up is the ESPN morning show with Greeny. Thank you very much. Get Up is what it's called. And I don't know. I mean, now here's the other thing Salisbury got in the middle of was a controversy. Who is the player? Our listeners will help us out again. There's a player who did an interview in bare feet. And I wanted to say it was an NFL player.
Well, Rodgers famously did one.
Oh, is that right?
There was, I think it was turf toe or some injury where he showed it was during COVID and he showed his toes onto the camera.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's what you're thinking of.
No, this is much more recent. And and the quote was something to the effect of, well, I'm getting popular enough now where more restaurants are letting me walk in with bare feet. Now, the official bumper-to-bumper position is that if you go into a restaurant, you should not be allowed in bare feet. Now, I guess if you're in the middle of the beach or, who's to say?
Looks like Patriots receiver Mac Hollins.
There it is. That's it.
Yeah.
And Salisbury was very unhappy with the barefoot concept and just savaged said player in that situation. So suddenly, it's almost like we need a foot roundup. Who knew? And as training camp begins, because everybody's talking about feet. What's inbounds? What's okay? Is a pedicure okay? Is getting booted from a restaurant in bare feet okay? I say yes. I don't think there should be any negotiation on other people. I mean, we talk about this on airplanes. What people do with putting their bare feet in the air on armrests, etc. I don't think there's should be any room for people to walk into a restaurant in bare feet, to be quite frank. Now, on the pedicure thing, I'm not a big pedicure guy, but I've never viewed it as if you're a real man or a real football player, you can't, what do you possibly? No, I just don't. We create these divisions, that are these oversimplifications about what defines whatever we think. Football player, a man's man of a football player. I think, now, if you go back, I'm guessing to like the 60s, 70s, I'm guessing do we have any stats to indicate the percentage of men, adult men who got pedicures? Because my guess is it would be a lot lower than it probably is today. And today I would say it's not even worth discussing. It should not be that big of a deal. Orlovsky, though, again, making news for us twice today, he's staked out his territory on this. He is absolutely against pedicures. Now, I will say, and the timing is interesting here, because on my way in, I made a stop to pick up some feed bag at one of our many Lund's Byerly's. Got a hot food section. And it was just my bad luck to run into a man who needed a pedicure badly. I'm not sure I've ever. Now, he wasn't barefooted, but it was like sandals, and I almost chose not to get food. That's how difficult it was to see the condition of his toes. And I look at that and I go, man, that's pedicure. I would say, if I was smarter, I would have found a way to sneak a picture of his feet and send it to Orlovsky and say, reconsider your position or you should be canceled. Because no one, male or female, should have to look necessarily at feet that were in this particular condition. You know what I mean?
No, I get it. I've had it done once, and it was nice.
Was it enjoyable?
It wasn't
and don't
bad.
They usually, like a lot of these places, they'll kind of give you like a mini massage on the calves a little bit. That it's a whole
water
bit.
Soak.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that, right?
Now that begs what you just said. Begs the other question of feet in restaurants. Can you wear sandals to a restaurant? Is that technically bare feet?
No. Technically, it's not. I mean, I'm not a big sandals
guy.
Out. Well, I know. Which I hate sandals. I don't like them. I've never understood. I mean, I get the comfort. I don't like them, but that's part of the reason. I don't want to see your feet.
Yeah.
I
like slides, but the ones that go in between your toes, I can't do.
Too tough, too painful.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I understand that too. That makes some sense.
Planes are unacceptable.
Ask Rex Ryan. That's from Bookseller Guy. Yeah, I don't want to go down the Rex Ryan road. There's always that sort of thing. If you don't take care of your feet via pedicures, you may be seeing a doctor podiatrist. Huh. Dan, right across the border from McAllen, Texas, in the Mexican city of Reynosa, you can get a pedicure with a margarita at a reasonable price. Big hit for retirees. Carl from Minneapolis. Hold on. This toxic masculinity is getting old. Dan, the question is, should a dude with a well-pedicured feet be allowed in a restaurant? The answer is yes, of course. And I know for some people, who was the first basketball? Wasn't Shaquille O'Neal famous for getting his toenails painted as well during the pedicure? And there was a lot of bitterness about that for some people.
Well, your quarterback gets his fingernails painted.
And it still bothers Glenn Mason to this day.
Yeah.
He's obsessed with it. He doesn't understand it. You don't have to understand it. I don't care. Believe me. It's the blue-collar city of Chicago. Mike Ditka, the whole bit. If you can sling the ball even better than he did a year ago, they're not going to care if he's got like a nipple ring, 3 nose rings, and 2 earrings. They're not going to care, man, in Chicago. If you can play the position, that's all they're going to be interested in, right? I even think that's true in Green Bay. Now, I don't know. Maybe a nipple ring would be a bridge too far in Green Bay for fans. If you found out that Jordan Love had a nipple ring, what would you be offended?
Does he eat brats?
Well, probably.
Does he have cheese curds? And I think it even itself out.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
As long as it doesn't get in the way of the throwing motion,
That's you don't want to inhibit. Yeah, that could be a problem. Yeah. That's correct. Bonus bucks?
Yes. The fan at BigDeck.com want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks to the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com. The keyword this hour is presets. The keyword preset, KFAN.com.
It appears, sorry about that, I didn't mean to step on your touchdown call. It appears after a brief pause, we will get to check in with Kevin Seifert after Vikings practice today. We'll get some headlines from him, some reaction from him on the Orlovsky soundbite that we played earlier, and much, much more with ESPN's Vikings reporter, Kevin Seifert, and weekly contributor to this show right around the corner.
Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barreiro on The Fan.
If you want to chime in what's happening with your favorite KFAN shows, you can. You can make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. So let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard text message and data rates apply.
Here's the best pedicure-related text to come in thus far. This is from 612 guy. I suggest you don't wait as long as I did to get my first pedicure. I felt sorry for the young lady who did mine. Wow. That says a lot right there.
As long as you're not the worst she's ever seen.
Sounds like it's pretty close. Kevin Seifert joins us from, I'm assuming, TCO Performance Center. Are you still there, or you already moved on?
Just got off the practice field. We had... there was about a 90-minute practice here, and then we had some access to talk to players and coaches, and now I'm just sitting right outside talking to you.
New bucket hat this year?
Same bucket hat. I did shop around. I have a big fat head, and so there's only certain sizes that will fit me, and understandably, there's not many brand names that will expand out to the size that I needed, and the one I have fits. And so where I am. I know that's probably more information than you wanted or needed, but it was a big emphasis for me this summer to try to upgrade, and I was not able to.
Coverage is important. There's no question about that. It's nothing to mess. It's nothing to be too proud of, right? Like to show your toughness by I can handle the sun. No, that's a blunder. That's a rookie blunder, and the veterans among you, I think you've actually started a little bit of a trend. I think here's what happens, in my opinion. You can speak to this, but my sense of it is the kind of hat you're talking about, they're not always the most flattering. So among the ink-stained wretches, there is, well, I don't want to look dorky like that, so I'm just going to try to tough it out. And then what they say is, well, wait a minute now. Seifert's secure enough in his masculinity or whatever, that he doesn't care. He just wants to be protected. So then it becomes a little more popular, or you sort of break down the barriers, and they say, well, if Seifert can do it, then maybe I should stop acting like an idiot and pretending that this isn't painful if I don't protect myself from the training camp sun. Am I onto something, you think?
I mean, we'd have to do a survey and talk to the other ones who are recent converts. I know Judd Zolgad has joined me in that realm. We used to be, as sports writers, we used to say, it didn't matter what we look like because we're just here, we just need to have a face for radio.
Those days are over.
Like to say.
Yeah.
Those days are over. And every now and then I'm asked to go on the Worldwide Leader or do a digital video, or even podcasts now often get put on video. And so I have to be looking my best at all times. And the bucket hat is just something that people are going to have to accept.
What is the more controversial comment from Dan Orlovsky from your network today? Is it 1, football players don't get pedicures, or is it 2, whoever the Vikings quarterback is, what he's going to have to realize is that the true star of this offense is Kevin O'Connell?
Yeah, that was the second one. I'm sure. Well, I don't know. I'm sure there's been a lot of pedicure discussion. It sounds like you guys got in on that discussion.
Both on both ends of it. We've done both.
Okay, good. Yeah. And so the other one, it definitely, and there may have been a beat writer who tweeted out just that line without any further context of what he was saying. I myself would have
never.
That was me.
Yeah.
That was me who did it. And so. It definitely, when you just pull that quote out, it sounds pretty, I don't know if O'Connell didn't say it, but it still sounds arrogant, I guess. But I think what he was saying is that it's another way of saying trust the scheme. He needs to trust the play, trust the scheme, that there will be and we've talked about this part of it. This is an offense that if the scheme is running the way it's supposed to, there will always be an answer for the quarterback. And you don't have to take on the additional level of thinking in terms of who is going to be open if you just kind of go through the pure progression and you follow the scheme as it's been laid out, a lot of the thinking has already been done, I guess is another way of putting it. And so I don't think Kevin O'Connell would consider himself the star of the offense or want to be considered the star of the offense, but I do think he would probably agree to an extent that you're best off when the quarterback is running the offense and not necessarily trying to do the thinking himself.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a fine line there, though, because it does, whether Orlovsky intended it or not, it comes off a little bit as I'm going to make it as complicated as I want to because I'm KOC. And I do worry about that a little bit because in the clip that preceded it, right, it was Thielen, it was the two of them, Thielen and Orlovsky riffing on the nature of the Vikings offense. And I think they were trying to present it as a whoa, line of scrimmage. Some teams might have 4 or 5 variations. We got 50. And maybe they're showing up, maybe they're even embellishing a little bit just for the sake of the 4 or 5 minute soundbite, which was pretty compelling. But I don't like the feel of that. I do worry about what that says because it does make it sound as if I'm going to force you to do what I want you to do, as opposed to we're all going to come to some agreement on the basis of how good you are as a quarterback and what is fair of me to expect of you, depending on your experience level and perhaps even depending on your excellence at the position.
Well, in just talking to Kevin O'Connell about those types of things, I could say that his perspective would probably be that when you have a certain level of quarterback, at least when they do what Orlovsky's talking about, it works.
Yes.
They were not showing clips of last year's offense with the quarterbacks, from last year. They were showing clips of 2 seasons ago when Sam Darnold was making some of the best throws Sam Darnold made in his career, probably, and the 2 of them I think were to Justin Jefferson. And so, I would say, and O'Connell said that several times this offseason, that when they've had the same quarterback stays in the field and it's been a certain level of play, that they have done very well as a team and won double-digit games. And when the quarterback position, goes awry from a personnel standpoint, that's where they've run into trouble. And so, I can see how you're saying it, but I would, not to speak for him, but I think that would probably be part of the counter.
What did we learn today? Anything?
Well, we did in fact count snaps. I know that's been a very controversial topic, and
you have to.
It was. What's that?
You have to. I mean, it seems silly, but you have to.
No, yeah.
You're doing your job.
It's actually a good way to ensure that you're paying attention and your mind's not wandering and you're not off looking at the kickers or something as they're warming up and you're watching what you need to be watching. But it was split exactly 50-50 throughout practice until the final period when they just kind of ran out of time. And so I think Kyler Murray ended up with 4 more snaps than J.J. McCarthy. They were going back and forth from first and second teams. And so the initial, pledge that Kevin O'Connell gave that it'll be close to 50-50, may not be exactly 50-50 on any given day. But we're going to do everything we can to make these guys think that they have had a genuinely fair shot at the job. And I think that we did see that today. They both got opportunities to throw to the top receivers with the top line. And I'm only talking about when there's 11 on 11. I'm not referring to the 7 on 7 stuff, but it looked like a legitimate, fairly divvied out competition. Kyler Murray, they both got hit a couple times, which was kind of surprising. You're never supposed to hit the quarterback. And so there was at least one throw that Kyler Murray had where his arm got hit as he threw. And so that was either intercepted or almost intercepted. And JJ got hit in the backfield a couple times. It was strange, but, I would say JJ's best throw was a deep corner, to the sideline to Miles Price. Kyler Murray started off with a play it looked like almost like a broken coverage where he found Jordan Addison wide open for a big gain. And so he had a few more downfield completions than JJ, but I wouldn't say that I'm ready to make a final call on who wins the competition based off today.
We've not talked in a while, certainly since the Jamal Adams move was announced. once upon a time, a heavyweight name for sure. And it's a name people still recognize because of that history. But he certainly, I don't think there's any reason to believe he's quite the same player that he was when Seattle gave up a bunch, right, to get him.
Yes.
So who is he at this point? Why do we want him? What do we think? Where do we think this is headed?
Well, I mean, they get a guy who, if he is healthy and if he stays healthy, has the potential to be a really unique playmaker in Brian Flores' scheme. And we just talked to Jamal, actually, and he talked a lot about how many people around the league were telling him, hey, if you ever get a chance to link up with Brian Flores, you should, because you have the perfect kind of, non-traditional skill set in terms of being a safety, but probably better at playing near the line of scrimmage and even as a linebacker, and that's what he is officially now, than a lot of other players. And so when he has been at his absolute best, he's been a guy that is sacking quarterbacks, making plays in the backfield, doing things that you see a lot of even bit players in the Brian Flores scheme do often. And so in a best case scenario, they have a weapon that they can deploy at various times to make big plays in key situations. I don't think anyone's expecting that he's going to be like a full-time starter. I mean, he had like 400 snaps last year for the Raiders, and the last time he was really a full-time starter was more than a few years ago. He talked about this today. He had a really serious injury, a torn quadriceps tendon that, in his mind, has taken him years to come back from, and he's feeling closer to being back than he ever has from it. He's 30 years old. He's on a veteran minimum contract, so there's really no risk there. He doesn't really even have to make the team if they decide that they don't want him to in terms of the financial impact. And so it's a pretty low risk, potentially high reward move with a big name, so that carries a lot of additional swag. But in the bottom line, even as he said, the first step is to make the team.
Kevin Seifert covers the Vikings and the National Football League for ESPN and ESPN.com, and also joins us pretty much weekly now that we're getting closer. Well, not just closer and closer. We're in training camp mode for sure moving forward. Harrison Smith. So are we at a point now where it's simply he's cracked the code, that he's a veteran player, that they're not going to demand come in for training camp, and he hates training camp because most players, as they get older, it's drudgery more than anything else. And it's just basically said, well, if they're going to let me go all the way to like the week before the season starts and then I blow in and not have to worry about training camp, I'll raise my hand for that. Is that where we are with him?
I can't say for sure what he's thinking because I haven't talked to him. I don't think many people outside of the organization have talked to him, at least media-wise. And so, I can't say for certain that he's, doing the Brett Favre thing, which is basically what you're describing. And it may work out that way. I do think that the Vikings felt at the end of last year that he could still play, and they weren't going to, pressure him to commit to it if he wasn't ready to commit to it. But the Vikings are the ones who've sort of been public about saying, hey, the door is essentially open. We're going to keep talking. And O'Connell did say yesterday that if it was going to happen, he wasn't expecting it to happen prior to training camp. So that sort of supports what you're talking about. But they don't know. I really don't think they know for sure that he's going to just, fly in the day before the season or the week before the season. And that's going to be that. They're leaving that possibility open and they'll see what happens. But, you always talk to players who retire or thinking about retiring and they get to a certain point. I think Favre called it, I'm starting to get the itch. And so, we'll see if Harrison Smith gets the itch or if he's just waiting to see if he's going to get it or if he's waiting to see what he feels like in his first summer without, at least first initial parts of training camp without football in a long, long time. And we'll see where it goes. They clearly, they didn't go out, they didn't sign Jamal Adams to replace Harrison Smith, and they haven't made a big acquisition at the position to make you think that they're moving on from a personnel or roster standpoint. And so you can read into that what you will, but I don't think they know for sure that he's coming back.
What do we read into the Brian O'Neill contract extension news?
Extremely expected that it was going to happen eventually. And he did kind of hint today that if it hadn't happened at the start of camp, he was going to, he basically said he wasn't looking forward to having to make the decision that he made in the off season, which was not to participate in the OTAs because he really didn't like that. He's not used to being on the field watching, but that's what players do when they're in their contract year. You don't risk the injury, and it's the thing that it's a voluntary portion of the year anyway. And so it's like if there's an upside to the timing of it happening yesterday, is that they didn't even have to face the question of whether he would have a sort of a hold in or a sit in or whatever you want to call it during camp and not participate in the early portion of it until the deal eventually got done. So it's good on the timing. There was really never a point where I don't think the Vikings or him thought that it wasn't going to happen. I think it even got pushed to this long because of the sort of weird front office timing in terms of the replacement of the firing of Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and the temporary replacement of him and then the permanent replacement of him. And once the new front office got assembled and they were ready to move forward, it happened pretty quickly.
Has enough time elapsed for you to feel like you are getting a better handle on the Nolan Teasley, not just the hire, but so much more having to do with his approach and where it might differ from what we've seen before? Is it too early to come to any sort of grand conclusions in that regard?
Too early for me. Like I mean, and that's not a negative. I just think we haven't really gone through a period of where the front office's activity is highly public. I mean, you see that during free agency, the draft, and then you see that towards the assembling of the roster at the end of training camp. So it'll come back up then. But it was interesting that one of his first, free agent signees, if not his very first, was Jamal Adams, and somebody he, knew from Seattle. Like he was in the Seattle front office when they made that deal to acquire him from the Jets. And Jamal Adams said today that he knew Nolan Teasley, in the building. Like he said, that's my guy. So there was definitely, like the one insight there is that Nolan Teasley kind of had this idea of like, let's go get somebody that I know and used to think at least was a very potentially high impact guy. And from what he was saying in the press conference yesterday, then he kind of introduced that idea to Brian Flores, and Brian Flores liked it, and they went from there. So that's a different way of player identification and acquisition than we had seen prior, in the sense that a lot of it was generated from the coaches themselves. And so, it makes perfect sense to pair him with Flores, but I don't know that it was necessarily his idea to start it off. And that's, a little interesting. You written about the Gerald Alexander story, the Vikings assistant who is now suspended after a DWI conviction. Where is this story going? It's pretty much complete. Gerald Alexander pled guilty to third-degree DWI, which is basically not agreeing to take the official breathalyzer test, which is a crime in itself in Minnesota. And that was, he took he's going to have the 48 hours community service and 2 years of probation and about $600 in fees and fines. And then he'll serve a 3-game suspension, which is the same suspension that Jordan Addison served. Not 3-week suspension. The one difference is that coaches get paid based on year round, so it's his unpaid is now, and if you're going to suspend a player, it's got to be during games because that's how their salaries are determined, is based on games. And so a little bit different there, but the same amount of time that he'll be away. And then when he comes back, it's back to work, and he'll be the DB's coach. And I would imagine he'll be on a pretty short leash in terms of further incidents, but it seems as though internally it's resolved in the sense that, he will serve out the suspension and then get back to work.
Do you sense, well, it's awfully early, but do you sense that the head coach is prepared for what is likely to become daily sessions of being peppered about the quarterback situation? I mean, that's the job, and I don't know that he's always shown a great inclination to sort of accept this part of it. Now, he had said earlier, hey, look, we're grown men here, but there's no guarantees for anything, but do you think he's ready for what's coming here?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean that he has to I mean, I think he understands the questions are coming, and whether he chooses to answer them or how he chooses to answer them will be up to him. But I think he's been around long enough, and he understands the position and the popularity of that position well enough to know that that's going to be the dominant headlines of this training camp until it's resolved. And even then, it's going to continue to be discussed at a higher clip than it would be otherwise, because of one of these two guys is going to be on the roster and obviously, be disappointed by the outcome. And so, that will continue as well. And so, you're right, it's very early, but I don't anticipate it ever getting to be like a confrontational thing where he's asking people to only ask about non-quarterback or something. Like he's fully aware of how, big of a deal it is and how relatively rare to even have a declared quarterback competition, no matter how much somebody, people on the outside think one guy is a favorite over the other. Doesn't happen in many organizations. I don't think it's happened here in the time that I've been around. Like, I don't know when the last time the Vikings had a truly, there's times when you'll draft somebody and he's a rookie, and you also have a veteran, and you're not sure if you're ready to turn it over to the rookie right away, or if the veteran is going to start off the season and then eventually give way, but never have that I remember around the Vikings, and maybe you can think back further than the late 90s, but, when's the last time they went into training camp with two veterans who were, basically going to be splitting time to show who's the best of the two, and there was no obvious financial incentive for one guy to be the winner, and no really draft the guy who drafted J.J. McCarthy is no longer here, and so there's no pressure to say, well, he's our draft pick, so we have to give him the benefit of the doubt. And so when the last time that you had a sort of a no hands tied behind your back competition here is pretty rare, and so I think he understands that and knows that that's going to be part of the game.
Which of these two players is more likely to hit training camp running, although you could say it's already kind of started, Caleb Banks or Christian Darrisaw?
Well, Christian Darrisaw, looked like he took all the snaps with the first team today, and so they were. It seems like it's not going to be a surprise if he's every now and then sitting out some time during practice as part of what they say is a pre-managed maintenance plan. But as of right now, he was first team and doing everything, and there's every reason to think that he's going to be a full-time 17-game starter at this point. Caleb Banks, has no restrictions. He's not on the PUP list. He was working mostly with the second team today, but from what I could tell, he got a full practice in. I don't know that they're holding him back too much. But again, this is not a padded practice. This was no pads at all except for helmets. And so we'll see where that goes. But the good news is he does not appear to be physically restricted in any way. And he's, again, starts with the second team, and we'll see where that goes from there.
Would you have enjoyed covering the Vikings in the era in which they regularly played 6 preseason games? 6.
I mean, but in those years, at least the main guys played in those games, didn't they? Or
yes,
did they not?
did. A lot of it, you're right. There was more to write about.
Interesting in that sense.
Yeah.
6 games of watching guys who may or may not even make the roster would be rough. I mean, there's a lot rougher things in the world, and if I'm watching football, no matter who's playing, I'm going to probably be pretty happy, but I don't know how productive 6 preseason games in this era would be.
I think our first day out there is Monday, although I haven't checked the schedule. I hope to see you there. Larry Mondello guy.
I'll be here.
Oh, that's good to hear. I look forward to seeing your bucket hat. Larry Mondello guy writes, wouldn't it be great if the Jackals like Seifert keep peppering KOC about the QB situation and he becomes so flustered he just keeps responding, Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay.
So yeah, that I mean, of all the things, I would imagine that he will, that in terms of all the skill sets that he has, I'd imagine deflecting politely questions that he doesn't want to answer is pretty high up there. And so I do not anticipate anything. If we get him flustered on that, I'll be shocked, and it won't be intentional. But we'll see. We'll keep asking the right questions, or what we think are the right questions, and we'll go from there.
I never underestimate your jackaldom. I'm just telling you, in a subtle way, a sneaky way, I think it's possible. That's the greatest answer.
The questions.
That's it. That's all you're doing. You're doing your job. The Tampa Bay answer is the greatest answer I ever elicited from a football coach. Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay. That was it, and they walked out of the Winter Park media room. Long time ago.
You were asking about the previous game, right?
No, I was asking about the new book that came out in the middle of his book, and he was saying, and Tampa Bay was who they're going to play the next week, and he said, I'll answer Tampa Bay questions. And I said, well, wait a minute, your book just came out. You told us there's going to be some explosive stuff in it. Now we want to talk about it. And he did that little chuckle and said, Tampa Bay, and then you could hear him walk out in the audio because it had that squeaky door at Winter Park in the media room. So
I've all my years, I don't think I've ever driven a coach to walk out the door with my questions. So congratulations there.
It's not the first or the last time, frankly. That's sad but true. Sometimes in person, sometimes on the telephone. I don't know if it's it's something that is to the good or to the bad. It just is. We'll see you Monday. Yeah. Thanks for the help as always, my friend.
Okay, Dan.
Appreciate you. Kevin Seifert, outstanding work as always from what used to be Winter Park, now is TCO Performance Center. We'll come back with a shorty. Then we got Top 5. We got Kessler in studio coming up. We got some interesting sound from Daddy Ball of LaMelo Ball's father's fame that I think you might be kind of interested in. And when we come back, maybe we answer this question, Blake Moore. 651 guy writes, I've been listening for over 10 years and still have no idea who Larry Mondello guy is or his relation to the station. Maybe we will attempt to solve that mystery next.
You're listening to Barreiro on The Fan. The Fan. Every weekday.
One night, one stage, one epic band. My Chemical Romance at Target Field, August 24th. Geiger tickets before they're gone. Get all the details, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Larry Mondello guy, who are you? Maybe I should let Larry Mondello guy speak for himself via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. For those who don't know the bit, who is Larry Mondello guy? How has he become so epoxied to this station? I think especially in the afternoon. What's that all about? I'll let him speak for himself via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line at 646-86. Vikings quarterback observation comes in. We just chatted with Kevin Seifert on that issue and many others. Dan, the Vikings made the choice to publicize a competition because even though they have made their decision that Kyler is the starter, barring injury, of course, publicizing it as a competition opens the door to increase McCarthy's trade value. I believe that throughout camp, you're going to hear stories of how great McCarthy is doing. Oh boy, you're going to hear how hard a decision this is going to be. Again, this is only to increase his trade value. Look at the actions we got when he's the backup. I believe there's a 70% chance McCarthy is traded, 40% before week one. It's an interesting observation. I don't know how much trade value he would have at this point. However, there is a chance that there are a couple teams that liked him coming out of college and said, if we get him and we know what to do with him, we'd take a flyer on him. Maybe not for right now, but for the future. That is very possible. The tricky part about saying how good he is that you can't go to hell with the joke, because if you go too far, if you're too effusive in praising him, you're going to have people saying, why isn't he starting? The basis of the way you're talking about him, why isn't he starting? Now, I guess to come back to that would be, well, Kyler Murray's looked even better. I don't think it's, like I said, I think for the second consecutive year, the Vikings have greased the wheels in favor of a certain guy being the starter week one. A year ago was JJ. This year he's on the other end of that. It's Kyler. And then I think Kyler would have to fall on his face for McCarthy to be the starter. Nathan mentions apparently that the project had got into the discussion of not who you think is going to win the job, but who you would rather have win the battle. That's easy. I think if you're a Vikings fan, I don't even think that's a toughie. That's easy. McCarthy. I mean, for all the obvious reasons, going back to why they drafted him in the first place. If McCarthy plays so well that he somehow, or even, perhaps Murray gets hurt, that McCarthy becomes the guy, and obviously becomes the guy, because he wins the job, that's what you want. You want to see the young guy still don't have to spend hardly any money on him. The guy you invested in is the guy you wanted to finally have the long-term answer, so we're not playing this yearly soap opera with the quarterback position. You know, the idea that who's Tampa Bay's starting quarterback right now? You guys were talking about it yesterday with Sinekin filling in for me, and he was speculating on, well, what if, Mayfield's going to be an unrestricted free agent. What if he comes to Minnesota next year? Well, that's what you're trying to avoid, obviously, I think, is, oh, my God, we're going through this again, and now how long is he going to be the guy? I think if you're a Vikings fan, you're absolutely rooting for McCarthy. Now, you have to believe that he's real and that it's not a phony, I guess, look that allows him to come out of this as the starter. But in the hypothetical sense, I think you'd much rather tether, if he emerges, if he legitimately emerges, tether yourself to McCarthy for all of the obvious reasons rather than roll the dice with a guy who's already been rejected elsewhere, isn't old, but is longer in the tooth, and where then you have an open-ended situation in terms of contract if you're going to keep him after this year. I don't think that's very difficult. This is Rhinestone from the Biffy. On the topic of Larry Mondello guy, the dude's hilarious. We are patiently waiting his next call into green cheese trivia on Saturday nights. Big fan of his work, whoever he is. Like they'd say on the Iron Range, he's a classic. Now, I wonder if the Larry Mondello guy is that's a burner account complimenting himself.
It could be. He is on the line. He did end up calling in.
Oh, he did? Well, then
if you're interested.
Pot him up. We only got about a minute because it's not working for me. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do it. Larry Mondello guy, so do you want to, we do make assumptions on this station that everybody knows everybody, what everybody is and what every bit is. So for the guy who says, I don't know this guy from a bale of hay, who is Larry Mondello guy, and how did you become so tethered to the station?
Who is Larry Mondello guy? It's a question as old as time, Dan.
That's true.
I am. My name's Tim Flanagan. I'm a local comedian, so you can come and see me sling some jokes around. But I got into comedy. I always liked it and stuff. But I'm just a rube like everybody else. I listened to the station going way back to the late 90s. I started writing bits for Common, and he liked them. And I met him, and he said, hey, why don't you come and do some stand-up with me?
Sure.
And I did it, and so everybody that doesn't like my comedy can blame Common for encouraging me.
Okay.
And that's kind of it. So I'm pretty much just a rube like everybody else. Just got a little more access than others, although nobody's given me the hotline number yet.
And who is Larry Mondello?
Larry Mondello is from the show Leave It to Beaver. Larry Mondello is Beaver Cleaver's best friend, who has a little bit of resemblance to me, and who used to get Beaver in trouble all the time.
Yeah.
And I always thought he was a great character because every single time they'd show him on TV, he was eating a candy bar or an apple, or sometimes both, in every single scene. And it just it was an amusing character for me. So when I was forced to pick a moniker, that is what I went with.
Wasn't one of Beav's other friends? Didn't he have a friend named Lumpy? Wasn't Lumpy? Or is that a different show?
That was Wally's friend.
Wally's friend was Lumpy. Okay.
Whitey. He had Whitey.
Okay, Whitey. All right. So Lumpy,
friend, and then Lumpy,
Lumpy was Tony Dowd's friend. Okay, that's a good. And then who's the one, the disingenuous? Hi, Mrs. Cleaver.
Yeah,
who is that? That's Eddie Haskell.
Eddie Haskell.
Yeah. I grew up on that show, man. I haven't watched it. I don't even know if it's syndicated anymore anywhere. I'm assuming it is somewhere.
I haven't seen it in years, but my mom loved it, and so I always watched the reruns. So,
well, this exercise.
Well, it's just good to know that people are thinking about me.
Well, that's it. I mean, you got to look at, and beyond that, every once in a while, it is good to go back to the beginning because we can't always assume everybody knows everything about everybody, and so it's kind of good sometimes to set the record straight, because I'm not even sure. I mean, I knew you were associated, obviously, with Common, but I don't even know how it began exactly. So now we have it reestablished. I hope that listener is still listening. Chances are he's already moved on to something else, but I hope he got that explanation at least.
Well, thanks for having me, Dan. I always like to share my story.
I appreciate that. 651 guy, by the way, is back. I did not actually expect an answer, let alone a segment. Thank you, LMG.
By the way, I don't know I don't know who that last texter was talking about calling into some trivia thing. I have no idea what that is. So I think he's making that up.
He might be making that up. That's very true.
Somebody's pretending to be me.
Keep the comedy coming. We'll be in touch. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dan.
Larry Mondello guy helping us out as only he can indeed do. Kessler is scheduled for about a half hour from now. There's a lot of stuff to get to. We got a major controversy, some serious accusations involving the St. Paul mayor. There's some sound I sent to Brett Blakemore from intrepid Care 11 reporter Lou Goose that is not to be believed, but he's standing by that his sources say that that's one of the allegations. I'm sure we'll get into that. There are other stuff we'll get into with Kessler at the bottom of the hour. Top 5 now, though. What do we got?
Kaprizov, no longer the highest paid player in the NHL.